But I just want to make you guys knew you were. Yeah.
All right, well, I'm gonna go ahead and get started.
Go ahead.
I'll probably deviate from this stuff.
Sure.
Good evening, everybody. All right, they told me I'm not allowed to walk around because of that thing. Normally, those of you who've had my class, you know I stand over there. Thank you all for coming tonight to our first Todd Scholarship presentation. I know we're all kind of looking forward to Lucas actually presenting him stuff and not me up here talking. But it's me, then it's Dr. Todd, and it's Lucas. I did want to, first of all, thank everybody. This is a donor-supported scholarship, so we appreciate those of you who are here who have provided support towards that, and as we continue to grow this program. I had a couple, we're glad to see students here because part of this is to encourage people to apply as we open the scholarship again. I did have the question of how does this work? So I'll give you a little bit of background. 5 or 6 years ago, we started talking about what kind of scholarship would we do at the Center for Applied Energy Research if we were going to do some sort of undergraduate support. And as we talked around to it, we sort of kept coming back to the same idea, which was really, we want to give students a chance to develop their own ideas, give them resources, give them the support and mentoring, both technically and entrepreneurially, to be able to take those ideas and move them out. And so that was where this became a little bit different than a normal just scholarship or tuition scholarship, but it's really more about encouraging and supporting someone to develop their own ideas that are probably things none of us who've worked in the area for decades would think of on our own. So that's what's different about this. They did make me do the Instagram thing last week. So you probably also all heard my comment at the end, which was, oh yeah, and we give you $10,000. So that's a reason for you to apply. There's on this is both information for if you want to support the program, but also if you want to apply. You all probably know how to do those QR codes. I still struggle with it at Kroger. So I'm very excited to be able to have this talk go today. Before we turn it over to Lucas, however, I do want to introduce Dr. Todd. Dr. Todd is one of those people, when we were thinking about what we wanted to do, immediately came to mind. We're wanting to empower a student to take an idea, to bring it to market, to build something here. And, I remember Dr. Todd saying it frequently, that if we get people from Kentucky to build businesses in Kentucky, they'll stay here and they'll hire other Kentuckians. And that's how we're going to improve the economy of the state. So that's where that connection comes from. We very much appreciate his support for this program. And we're very proud to have named it after him. So Dr. Todd, would you like to come up and introduce Lucas?
Thank you, Rodney. I have to start with just a couple of comments. I'm very honored when I heard about this. I've been gone for 10 or 12 years. You figure everybody's kind of figured out you're gone and not paying much attention to what you've done or think about doing. But this just really hit me right in the heart, because when I was here, and I've got one of my former students who worked in my display lab when I was a young professor, I had a dozen students working there, and just being able to, instead of putting your books down in the lobby and talking basketball with people, go in and you put your books down in a laboratory and you watch new things happen that we need to see happen. And when I became president, we really put an emphasis on undergraduate research, because it does change your experience for education. I was fortunate, I got a CAER air conditioning scholarship when I came to the UK, and I transferred from Murray. The founders of CAER were all UK graduates. And the beauty of that scholarship was that I got a summer job up in Syracuse, New York, working in research labs. And that was just transformational. It just makes you know what the occupation is all about. But today I have the true honor of introducing Lucas Bertucci, who is the first one to wear this auto award. We've met a few times. I've heard him give presentations. I'm very excited about what he's going to say today. He and his parents are here today. They're from Louisville. He's a chemical engineering major, although he's also got a minor in mathematics and photography and computer science. So as he talks about attacking problems, he gangs up on them. You know, I've often said, if you're going to solve a really hard problem, you got to gang up on it. Usually takes 2 or 3 people. In this case, he can do it himself. But if you have you ask an engineer to solve a problem, you get an engineering solution. You ask a doctor to solve a problem, you get a medical solution. You ask the 2 of them to solve a problem, you get a patent. Because you can do that kind of intellectual give and take, which makes a difference. And so I'm so proud of him. He'll explain his project to you in a minute, but in reading some about him, what I do like about his experimental technique, which has been going on for quite a while, he doesn't just start something and it runs into an obstacle to say, well, couldn't do that. He researches and figures out what can I do, makes it work and completes the project. And he's also chosen to take a bit of an entrepreneurial route, which is another thing. I'm really glad that Rodney remembered that because it is true. We in this state can't continue to ask people to come here and give us jobs because they'll give us jobs that they can give to the next country. We got to make our own. We don't need people who can assemble other people's ideas. We need to have people who have their own ideas. And once we do that, we'll be in a better place. And for those of you students who are thinking about applying for this, I'd urge you to do so because it's very, very worthwhile what they allow you to do. And for those of you who are donors, I really thank you for that because donors give the spice to the recipe. They allow you to do the things that you really want to do, but may not have the recurring revenue to do. And so we need the donors and we need them to stick with this program. And it's one that I really feel is worthy of support. And you'll know that after you hear Lucas for the next 45 minutes or so, tell us what he does. So Lucas, the floor is yours. Thank you all.
It's a lot of power. Listen to me for the next 45 minutes. All right. Well, first off, I just wanted to say, Dr. Todd, thank you for those great words. That was just really meant a lot, and I really appreciated that. So tonight, I'm going to talk to you about who I am, kind of what I've done. And so we're going to start off a little bit. First off is the night with Lee and Lucas. Obviously, that's Lee. I'm Lucas. And so see, let me tell you about, before I got the scholarship, just kind of get to know me, what my background is, where I'm from. I just jumped ahead. So born and raised in Louisville, Kentucky, so just an hour away. My parents who, still live in Louisville are here tonight because it's literally just an hour away. I was like, I want the college experience. I want to go out and be independent, but I want to be here in Kentucky, as well as UK has the best engineering program. I loved it. And so show you here, this is me graduating high school. There's my roommate in the front row who, I actually graduated with all of these 3 in the front. I'm going to embarrass him for a second. Charlie's wearing sunglasses to hide his tears. And then that's us, our freshman year. I believe we were playing Florida and SEC Nation came. And so we got up front and we were screaming. And, it was one of those moments where I was like, I love where I'm at. It's just amazing. So as already mentioned, yes, I'm a chemical engineer. I love being a chemical engineer. This is a bunch of our other chemical engineers at the American Institute for Chemical Engineering Conference that was down in Phoenix, Arizona. And so you can see just the wonderful friends that I get to have with that, and the professors who have just supported me along the way. So a little bit behind, about just me outside of class. Me, I'm a chemical engineer. You've heard that, but some of my hobbies. I love hiking. I love being outdoors. Red River Gorge is amazing. Enjoy hiking there. We have such beauty here in Kentucky. You don't need to, go states over to find it. It's right here. And so just being able to experience that is just a true pleasure. Additionally, this is outside of the STEM field, but I also do art, which is a little different. So these are all stuff that I've done. These are just pictures of them. So I do painting and drawing as well. And so I think I've done those a couple of years ago. And, some of those design skills, I'll show you, why, how that's really helped me. Additionally to that, also, I'm a photographer. If you all recognize that one, that is right here in Lexington. That's just downtown. this one right here, it's black and white, but it is digital. I do enjoy black and white. I think it's kind of fun, something to explore as well. The one at the top, however, is black and white film photography. So I do like exploring new mediums, kind of like, being down in the lab and getting to play with like a new instrument. It's fun to explore. And then that one right there is to show that I do more than just black and white, but I can do color as well. And that is digital. So how did I kind of get started in research? So I did this thing, it was called the Engineering Scholars in Undergraduate Research. I was like, okay, going to UK when I first came in, and all of them were like, we have fantastic research here. And I was like, cool, how do I get in? Because I was terrified. I was like, how do you get into a lab? What do you do? And so there was this program called the Engineering Scholars in Undergraduate Research. It was open to freshmen and sophomores. And you just submitted an application and they were like, awesome, you're in. It was real easy. And actually it was taught by Dr. Escobar and Dr. Bryson from the Chemical Engineering Department and the Department of Civil Engineering. And it was just a real easy, coming for like an hour a week. They just tell you about, what research is. You do some kind of fun experiments to, learn how to manage data, all sorts of stuff. But in addition to that, we then had professors come in and they were actually recruiting us. It was unlike anything I'd seen before, where they came in, they were given like 3 slides, 5 minutes. So, it's kind of how the tables turned on them. Usually we're the ones giving presentations to them. Now they're giving presentations to us. And so one of the professors, Dr. Joshua Warner, he came in and he was like, I'm doing electronic waste recycling. It's like, I know absolutely nothing about that, but that sounds cool. And so as a result, I got plugged in to that lab. And that's where it started. Started my freshman year, right from the get-go. And I was actually, Dr. Warner was from the mining engineering department, which I was like, mining engineering, okay, that's coal, and coal. And so when I got into it, they were like, no, totally wrong. They were applying mining engineering techniques to computers, laptops, cell phones, because the key was, treat it like a rock. You process it like it's a rock, because, you look at a laptop and some of the content in it is actually higher content than what we have in our ores. So why not just process it like it's a rock? Let's not throw a bunch of chemicals at it right away. Let's see what we can do beforehand and treat it like a mining engineer. And then I came in on the chemistry side. So I was doing the chemical engineering behind that when they said, okay, we want to throw it into some reactors and recycle copper from that. And so that was really key to kind of shaping where I am. And the point was just getting my foot in the door. And once I got it in, I just jammed it in and said, I'm not leaving. And so then from that, I also did some presentations. This is actually me at the Capitol in Frankfurt there, just during COVID, you can tell by my mask. And so I had a great opportunity to just go and talk with some legislators there and, really present my research that was about last year. But also, talking about the Lee Todd Scholarship, it isn't just about research. In addition to that, it's also about entrepreneurship. So these have been 2 of my entrepreneurial influences. And so one is Kevin Hubert, who he is the CEO and president of Neocycle and XMet, which is a startup company that was on the previous research that I was doing, which was the electronic waste recycling. And he was great. He would take me out to lunch all the time and we would just chat and talk about, what does it mean to be a CEO, an entrepreneur? What does that look like? And to show me that that world isn't scary. I was terrified of the word, CEO, that's an acronym. Oh, that's terrifying. No, it's, he really helped me get there. And the other one is Dr. Patrick Walker, who was in the Honors College, and he was a really big influence. I took his class. It was called Black Wall Street. And it was about how we can develop an entrepreneurial ecosystem here in Lexington for minority small-owned businesses, and as well as hearing sort of his inspiration from the original Black Wall Street and that impact. Sadly, Dr. Walker passed away right after I took his class. I remember that. I remember walking, it was during the summertime, I was heading to my research lab, and I got that email, and it was like, hey, your previous student of Dr. Walker's, we want to let you know that he passed away unexpectedly. And so I always remember from him, he had this equation, chemical engineers, we might not call it a real equation, EM equals E fruit, which stands for the entrepreneurial mindset, means embracing fear, risk, uncomfortability, innovation, and team chemistry. And anyone who's had Dr. Walker knew that he was a joy, but he was a really big influence, as well as he taught me about conscious capitalism. And he said, I'll never forget it, that, when you start a business, have a non-financial reason for existing. You want to make money, but you want to change the world too while you're at it. Also, one of my big entrepreneurship influence was the Dean's Leadership class. Standing in the middle there is me right next to Dean Buckite, our Dean of the College of Engineering. Rudy is fantastic. He is just amazing. And, the speakers that he would bring in to talk to us about leadership. As an engineer, I'm thinking, okay, I'm gonna be in a lab like all day long. I'm gonna be working with computers. I'm gonna be working with numbers. I'm gonna be working with data. And he brought in these people who were like, you're more than just the technical abilities. You can go beyond, you can be vice presidents of big companies. You can, change the world. You're not just, a lab rat. So that really opened my eyes. But then shortly after, I became the lead Todd Scholar. And that changed a lot. That was really the moment when, I remember it when Dr. Grappo told me, I think it was probably about a year before it came out. He said, hey, there's an idea being floated around over at the Center for Applied Energy Research about this scholarship centered around entrepreneurship and research and how you combine the two. I said, I don't know when that's coming up, but just keep your eye out for it. Because it sounds, like something that you might be into. And certainly it was what I was into and beyond that. And so I remember when it came up, I went right to his office and I was like, okay, it came out. I want to do this. What can we do? So he said, we kind of sat down and we mulled over some ideas. I've been doing electronic waste recycling, doing computers, laptops, batteries. And he said, well, let's go with something different. Let's try solar panels. So that's what we did. Looked at solar panels. So solar panels are a waste issue, which you don't think about because you think, okay, green energy, solar panels, they're great. And they are in terms of, providing that renewable energy and even being energy in, places where as long as you get the sun, you can put a solar panel on it and generate electricity. But the bad thing is thought, okay, that's cool, but what happens 25, 30 years later when the solar panel is useless? It just dies. It's at end of life, or even worse, what happens when you get a weather-related incident? Down in Florida, when hurricanes just sweep through, those solar panels are not staying there. They're gone. You're devastating. So now you've got solar panel waste. Now the issue with that is, when you look at what's in a solar panel, is this going to be hazardous? Sadly, yes, because solar panels have a high concentration of lead. Such a high concentration of lead in which it becomes dangerous for our environment. You start throwing that away, you start getting water coming through, groundwater, and most of the time you crack this glass, can really easily seep in there. Those lead solders that are in there become harmful. So we thought, we were designing green energy, great for, producing energy, but when we got to throw it away, now it's harming the environment. So looking at, what does this look like for, long term? So near term here, we're not expecting to see as much as we're kind of introducing solar into our grid. But as time progresses, as typical solar panel has a 25 to 30 year lifespan. But as well, there is also weather-related events and things that come up fairly soon that can cut that life short. So in the future, by 2050, it's going to be a massive issue for us in terms of, 60 to 78 million tons of photovoltaic waste that are going to be generated. Enough that is actually $15 billion worth in recycled material, and it could produce 2 billion new solar panels. So it's a big issue. We thought, oh, okay, how big is this really going to be? We're looking at a solar panel. We just think, oh, we'll just try something new. No, it's going to be a big issue, but let's jump on it beforehand, before it becomes, damaging enough to us. Let's tackle this issue. So we got a real issue here. And looking at what happens when you look at this solar farm and seeing what you do with that. You can't, they're done. You can't produce any more electricity. You're not going to try blowing on it like it's an N64 cartridge and plugging it back in. It doesn't work like that. It's not going to produce electricity. But also from this, learning that when you want to solve this problem, successful sustainability, is really going to come from this intersection of groundbreaking research and ethical entrepreneurship. And that is where the Lee Todd Scholarship lies, right there, is enabling that. So here's what we did. Our solution, solar panel recycling. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I'm a photographer. So the rest of these pictures are all going to be me, so that I've taken. So that's actually a real glass off of our real solar panel recycling process. So let's kind of talk about what is in a solar panel, breaking it down. So solar panel is much like a sandwich. It's just layers. You know, on the outside, you've got this aluminum frame. It's holding everything together. It's like the bread on your sandwich. Beneath that, one layer down, you've got your glass. That's what you're used to seeing. You know, it's protecting everything underneath. It's this tempered glass. And then beneath that, you've got your solar cells themselves. That's what's generating your electricity. It's a very thin layer. Solar panels are typically very, thick if you've seen one, but the actual layer that generates that electricity, very thin. And then on the back, you've got a plastic backing to just cover the backup. And so in all, you've got this sandwich that is frame, glass, solar cell, plastic. But kind of like your sandwich, you might want to hold it together with something. So the glue of this sandwich is also this ethyl vinyl acetate. And so all of this together becomes the solar panel sandwich. And so we kind of broke that down and we said, all right, what is in these different components? Because you can try and figure out, okay, where's the value? We're going to recycle this. What do we need to recycle? What do I need to design for? So our first step is obviously, let's break it down. Let's figure out what's in it. And so taking a look at it, even the solar cell layer, that very thin layer where it also has all that hazardous waste where the metal is, that's got your copper, your aluminum, your lead. It's going to have your silver in it, some smaller trace metals. And then as well with that, you're going to see the metal on the aluminum alloy from the frame itself. You're going to have glass, which can be your silicon oxide there. And then your plastic backing, which can range anywhere from PET to polyvinyl fluoride to polyvinyl chloride. So you're going to see some differing plastics there. But breaking that down, if what is really sort of like on a volume scale. So look at it. It is a lot of glass. Solar panels are a high volume. They're massive. It's longer than my wingspan. Trying to pick one of these things up here. And just for reference, I have about a 6.5 foot wingspan, and it's much longer than me. So a lot of that is glass. So that's like, okay, glass is relatively inert. It's not the issue here. What's the issue is the metallics. That's where all the lead is. That's only 5%. So you think about a landfill, you're throwing away 100% of a solar panel only because 5% of it's an issue. So think about that. If you could just recycle that 5%, you could recycle 20 solar panels worth of hazardous waste for what you're throwing away currently one solar panel for at the bare minimum. So we then would let's go get down to the lab. So this is us down in the lab. That right there is Dr. Grappo. We are punching this thing out. We're having a blast down there. We love the lab. It is a fantastic time. The mining engineers know how to have fun and also get amazing research done. So that also as well with him is a little mentorship opportunity there. That's a high school student. His name is Riley. He would come in the morning and we would teach him about research and he would come help us out. And we got to, say, hey, do some fun stuff. So we had some opportunity there to also kind of get back in that sense of being a mentor, which was a lot of fun. And I remember those mornings. I'm sure Dr. Grappo does too. And we were down there beating away at solar panels to try and pop it out. And then, as you can see, we started processing them. So, starting off with, we cut it up into smaller pieces, make it more easy to manage there, because dealing with a big solar panel is obviously not the easiest thing in the world. So, like any problem you want to solve, whether it be a problem you get in class or just in general, you're going to break it down into smaller pieces. And that's what we did. So our first step, we removed that glass and took that right off, which now you've got left is the metal and the plastics. Makes it much easier because now 80% of, your solar panel weight there is just gone. And that's inert. The glass isn't going to harm the environment. In fact, now you can sell that glass off. It is now recyclable. And what you've done now is made it much more manageable. So looking at the process as a whole, this is what we did in the end. Taking it through a few other steps. I won't bore you with the technical details of that, but just to show you our success, looking at how well we concentrated. So the copper, we got nearly like 99% of that in our metals. We did a great job with that one. That was really easy. The copper being not only very prevalent in there in some of those wires, but also it's valuable too. So we were very successful with that. In addition, the lead, that's the hazardous waste. That's the portion that we're all worried about. We don't want that to get into our environment. Let's figure out, can we get that into something more manageable? We did. We got over 80% of it, which is really, really good. We didn't expect that. At first, when you seem like you're kind of like, oh, I don't know if I know what I'm doing. And then to see your results are validating. Yes, you hit it, you hit your mark. And similarly with the other metals, getting really good at concentrating it. And as well as you can see, there's another picture that I took there. That is our real conveyor belt of that the glass there, in which we had a great time down in the lab doing a little photo shoot. Take care of that. So I want to show you kind of up close what some of our products from this look like. So this is glass here. So I'm working on my research. One day I hear that there's this Fortune 500 company that's heard of me, saw that I'm doing solar panel recycling, and they're interested and they want to talk. And I'm like, oh, wow, okay, this is really strange. You know, like this is a big company and they want to talk to me. I'm not going to them like, hey, they come to me. And so I put together this slide, this presentation kind of explaining what my technology is, how I went about it. And this was the first slide I used, in which I showed this picture off. And later on of the team, this technical team that I was presenting to said, yeah, Lucas, we knew right away you were legit because you can actually see the texture on the glass. And it's very specific that there's like this fingerprint that you can kind of see. It looks a little textured on there. And he said, that's how I knew it wasn't a stock photo. And you didn't just pull something offline, because we really went down there. We took that ourselves. That's our actual glass. And he said, yeah, that's how I knew that what you had, you weren't just faking it, but it was real. And so that kind of blew my mind, that something like, you know, being an artist and a photographer and applying that to this technical field where I'm just trying to take pictures, and I get this really high quality photo of the glass that I'm recycling. And now this big Fortune 500 company says, yes, we're interested in you. We know you're legit because you showed us this. Also as well, not just glass, this is the plastic. As you can see, it's all by itself, all lonesome there. And it's real white, real bright. And, you know, also we hear a lot about plastic. And so being able to recycle that, mitigate that as well is of importance. But also to get into some more of the fun stuff here, talking about the metals. This here is one of my metallic fractions. This one is where the majority of my copper, you can see there's a bunch of wires in there. That's where kind of your more base metals are going to go. And then the one that everybody knows, that blue look, that's the silicon. That is what makes the panel all blue. When you think of solar panel, you think of blue, and that's because it's all right in there. And these photos, when I was showing them off, I didn't think about how, you know, oh, the skills that I developed, you know, before I was the lead Todd scholar, doing things that I thought were widely unrelated. You know, I was doing art because I thought it was fun. I thought it was interesting. And, you know, now I'm being able to showcase this in high quality form to be able to communicate more efficiently as an engineer. So from that, I decided, okay, you know, let's go do a bunch of presentations. So this is my first one, and there's me with Dr. Todd there. I remember signing up for this one and being like, you know, okay, I've done presentations before, but this one I knew Dr. Todd was coming. So I was like, all right, I got to impress him. And so I remember, you know, there's a bunch of them all posters lined up from these undergraduate students who are all showing off research related to sustainability. And at the very end, I didn't even know it. It was like there's a competition. And like, all right. And it was the very first thing they announced, like right off the bat. They were like, all right, we're going to get into the undergraduate poster competition. And first place is Lucas Bertucci. And I was like, I did it. I was shocked. And I remember kind of like in a daze, like walking up there to get my award and just being like, oh, this is this is real interesting. And they got my picture, and I went back to where Dr. Todd and I kind of set up, and he leans into me and he says, "Oh, congratulations." And I said, "Yeah, I knew you were coming, so I just wanted to show off." And so that was the first one I did. And then I said, all right, let's do another one. So I did one at the International Forum of Sustainable Manufacturing, which was in between classes. I was rushing back and forth, going to stand by my poster, and got to talk with some people. And there were some judges that came by, and they were asking me questions, and they were real enthusiastic. And I quickly found out that like the first thing everybody wants to ask me is like, do you have investors? Like, have you commercialized this yet? And that's where I started hearing this conversation of, okay, I should keep that in my back pocket. And once again, I got first place, which was really nice. So I said, all right, let's do it a third time. So third poster presentation, this one, as you remember the picture earlier that I showed at the American Institute of Chemical Engineers. We are doing the same thing down there in Phoenix. I did a poster presentation, bringing that same stuff. And they break you up in different divisions. So you've got like a catalyst division. And then I was in the environmental division. And so I was going up against students from Princeton, Vandy, all the top universities all over. And there I am, my solar panel recycling research. I actually brought with me I had a little bag, and it had with it the solar panels. And I was like, here, hold this. This is really recycled glass. And people come by and like, oh, this is what you did. And I'm like, yeah, you can see it, you can hold it, you can touch it, you can throw it in the air, you can do whatever with it. And I remember because there was so much, they broke it up into smaller groups. So there was like environmental division, group 1, and I was group 4. And so I didn't realize that I was group 4. And so they're like calling out the names of like who won the individual groups. And you get a trophy, and you can kind of see it hiding behind as I'm holding it there. And I was like, oh, I guess I didn't win. And then they called group 4, and they're like, Lucas Bertucci. And so I was like, oh, I won. So I, once again, go up there, still kind of like in this days of, everyone's, the photographer snapping pictures. And then at the end, they say, oh, now we're going to do one for the overall environmental division. And I was like, oh, well, I won my group 1. And they were like, nope, you won the whole thing. And so that was the moment I was like, oh, okay, wow, I've really got something here, and really wanted to most off just kind of show off as the first Lee Todd Scholar, and make this something to say, yes, the opportunities have enabled me to do a lot. I have won 100% of all the poster competitions and sessions that I've gotten into. This is what has enabled me to do. And so even more, I got more upcoming. This one is actually going to be on Thursday. I'm going back to the Capitol, this time with my solar panel stuff. Going to talk to some more legislators, this time bringing something new. And then Friday, I'm driving down to Florida to go to the AICHE Southern Conference, where I'm going to do a technical presentation for them as well. So it's been great, all the opportunities that I have. Also being the principal investigator of my own project, I can do whatever I want with it. I don't have to like run it by someone first and say, oh, can I like show this off in my presentation? Like I can just be like, okay, I don't want to, put that in there. I'm the last person I have to talk to figure out if I want to, put this on my poster or not, which has been really great and helped me just speed up the process of just, I write my own abstract and just submit it and make the poster, and I'll run it past my advisor and be like, hey, like, you think this looks good? And Dr. Gropp was always like, fantastic, go for it. In addition to that, been in the news a couple times. That was a new experience for me, having, being interviewed, sitting down, and they're asking me questions, what is the Lee Todd Scholarship? And, what have you doing? What have you been up to? What do you want to do with it? And I thought it was funny because the quote there on the second one, it says, the first winner of the Lee Todd Student Innovation Scholarship wouldn't complain if his research changes the world. Which, if you know me, I'm like very laid back. So, I'm like, oh, I'm kind of, I'm a little sarcastic as well. So I'm like, I wouldn't complain. And I was like, that wasn't the best quote to use, but I think it's really funny that it's in there. And Mariah Kendall, who wrote that piece, she was super sweet and super nice. And I was very thankful because she put in some quotes that I remember talking about mining engineering and saying, oh yeah, it's way more than just coal. I think it's about resource engineering, it's about recycling, and really just appreciated that she included some of those stuff in there. So being in the news has been a lot of fun. But in addition to that, I have, I enjoy research. I love research. And so where the points where when I was a freshman, I told Dr. Grappa, I was like, hey, I really love research. I was like, you get like a job in this? And he was like, yeah, but you gotta go get your PhD. And I was like, all right, like, how do I go do that? And he's like, apply grad school, when that comes up, and walking through it. And so I was like, all right, it's my senior year. It's time to apply to grad schools. And so these here are just some of the grad schools that I've applied to and have received from them full offers. They've offered me full tuition, as well as about a $35,000 to $40,000 a year stipend as well. There is a little asterisk next to Vanderbilt, as I just went down there last weekend, and theirs were like, oh, your offer's on the way. It's so they said we want to meet you first, make sure you're not weird, make sure that the connection's like there. And so I hope they didn't think I was weird, but I felt pretty confident about that one. But just the doors that are open, that if you had told me that I would get an email from Yale saying, hey, want to come to Yale? Like, they got the wrong person. And so with this, even when I went down to Vanderbilt and was talking to a bunch of these professors, I had about 25 minutes with them to kind of ask them questions about their research, really learn about them. They can get to learn about me. And first question they usually ask is, oh, like, who are you working with? And I was like, well, that's the thing. Like, it's a bit complicated. I remember one of the professors went, ooh, like, complicated. I like to hear that. What do you mean? And I was like, well, I don't work for a professor. Like, I'm the principal investigator. So technically I have professors who work with me and they work for me, which blew their mind. And they were astonished by that. And they're like, how did you get this? And I was like, well, Center for Applied Energy Research started off this amazing thing called the Todd Scholarship, named after our wonderful previous president, Dr. Todd, who money them went, oh yeah, I know who you're talking about. And they're like, wow, that's incredible. Like, they know the Center for Applied Energy Research, they know the background there, and they said, this is fantastic. And so that blew them away, the fact that, that I have this position in which I get to set the direction and be the leadership for my own project has opened these tremendous doors. And so, as I kind of mentioned earlier as well, when I'm doing a bunch of these presentations, and, the first thing people usually asking me is, oh, do you have investors? Have you patented yet? Have you, what's the company behind, behind this, what is it? So eventually I said, all right, I'm starting my own company. So I started, signed, the paperwork to co-found this company, Verdant Beneficiated Resources, in which I have loved the process and loved working with my business partners. So basically, what happened is we found out the Department of Energy, every year they put out a couple times a year solicitations for things that they want to see funded. Oh, we want to improve nuclear technology. Oh, we want to improve, wind technology. And, they get more specific than that. But one of them this previous time around happened to be solar panel recycling. And I was like, well, that's exactly what I do. But there's a catch. Catch was that this grant was an SBIR, stands for Small Business Innovation Research Grant. And so basically what that meant was it needed to be a small business. So I was like, well, I've always been looking for the excuse. Now I've got the opportunity. I've got the research. Let's do it. Let's jump. And so in December, did the paperwork with the state of Kentucky and became officially filed. And I now am the co-owner of a business, which had you have asked me this 6 months ago, let alone 4 years ago, when I started college, if you think that I would be here, I would tell you that you've got the wrong person and that, quite frankly, you don't know what you're talking about, because no way I'd be doing this. In addition to that, I've got a patent coming soon on it. So that has also been an awesome experience to see that, going through the process with our awesome Office of Technology Commercialization here at the University of Kentucky. They're walking me through it, working with them. And one of the things I found really interesting was when I started, following out, working with them, they sent me this little handwritten note, and it was super sweet. And it was, oh, we're so thankful to working with you. And it's a little button in there, and it says, I'm a UK innovator or something like that. But I remember taking it to Dr. Grappa's office, and I showed it to him, and I was like, Dr. Grappa, look. And he was like, what? I said, on the first line, they called me Dr. Bertucci. And he said, that's pretty much a degree right there. Just frame that and you don't need to go to grad school. And so I was like, I kind of like how that sounds. And so to just kind of see these things in which the dreams that I had when I was, in Louisville, Kentucky as a high school student thinking, oh, one day I want to go do research at the University of Kentucky and see where that leads me. I wouldn't have believed that it would lead me to here. And as well as seeing these components of not just the research aspects of the Lee Todd Scholar program here, but also the entrepreneurship. And so kind of furthering into the entrepreneurship, I have done some, expanded into a world of, the more business-minded things that we don't get in engineering. One of the things that Dr. Todd has really taught me is you can learn in a classroom with a textbook and a lecturer, all day long, but you don't really truly start learning until you are solving the problems the textbook doesn't have anymore. Someone's already solved the textbook problems. No one's solved the solar panel recycling. No one's done that yet. So get out there and, really learn the unsolved problems and learn that way. And so doing that, now I'm doing the entrepreneurship aspect of that is, branding and marketing. So I'm like sitting there, actually, I'm going to embarrass him for a second. Elijah, who's sitting over here in the front row, he has been a great friend of mine and has been an artist who I just kind of bounce ideas off. So I'm creating these color schemes and I'm sending it to him like, what do you think? What do you think? Like, what do you think of these colors? He's like, something, keep pushing me. And so eventually I'm creating a color palette and I'm, designing up. I would draw or like hand sketch my logo designs and I would send it to him. And I was like, can you like do this in Adobe for me in Illustrator? And he would mock it up and really appreciative of him for helping me along that way. But I didn't think that I would be learning how to brand a company while I haven't even gotten my degree yet. Even when I was filing out the paperwork for, my business credit card, I was going to the bank and one of my co-owners said to me, he's like, oh yeah, it's just like, filing out a mortgage. And I was like, I've never done that before. Like, it's like I turned 21 last year. Like, I don't have that. And, now it's like, my mind is blown. And, learning as well about, the economic aspects of it, looking at, okay, our current situation here, if we had to you have to pay for someone to dispose of it as this Class C hazardous waste solar panel. It costs them money. They, for 1 ton, it's, above $150, $200, and that adds up. It's ridiculous. But what if you flip it on its end and say, oh, we can make money from it? And so looking at the more technical aspects of that has been truly enlightening to solve these problems and realize where successful sustainability really is at that intersection of groundbreaking research and ethical entrepreneurship. And then as well with that, as some of you have probably seen this week, I did an Instagram takeover. And so applying entrepreneurship, this is my aggressive grassroots marketing campaign in which I went around and held signs. And so in honor of that, I'm going to hold this sign now. So this is Lee Todd by 90. Once again, that QR code, if you would like to scan it. But yeah, that was really the most stepping out of my comfort zone I've done in a long time. As you can see, I'm out front of Whitehall right there. It was terrifying just standing there. I dragged my roommate along with me. I was like, you're gonna just film this. And he like stood far away. He was like, I don't want to be associated with you. I don't want to be associated with me either right now. In the middle there is Dr. Rappo. And I remember going to the line. He's like, what are you doing here? And I was like, I want you to hold a sign with me. He said, for what? And I was like, it's called Instagram. He's like, I know what Instagram is. He's like, Lucas, I'm not that old. And he was great. And I was showing him I made like 10 different signs and he loved this one. And that was the Lee Todd is greater than Lucas Bertucci. So that's my little self-deprecation joke in there. But we just had a blast doing that one. Had an absolute fun time with kind of stepping out of my comfort zone and learning that, kind of like my entrepreneurship mentors have taught me, uncomfortability is really the step forward that you have to take. So also as well with this, so it's not just about me. We're going to be finding the next Lee Todd Scholar as well. So as the first person to ever do it, when they sat me down for the first time, what they said was, all right, Lucas, I never forget when Dr. Andrews said, first person to do it, you can do great and you can succeed, or you can bomb this whole thing. And either way, you're doing great. Like, you know, we've got no expectations for you. Just go out and do it. And so I really appreciated that from the standpoint of I'm terrified to be the first person. I'm terrified to do something that I've never done before. But to be like, it's okay, we're going to be with you every step of the way, meant a lot to me. So for the next Lead Todd Scholars, here's my advice. So before your application, get into research, whether you're a freshman, sophomore, or junior, it's never too late to get into research. Like I said, I jammed my foot in the door and I wouldn't take it out. And that was really what you have to do. Get into research, find something that you're passionate about. It may not be the first lab you get into, maybe it's the next one, but once you get in, you can keep moving around and finding something, because that is where you start solving the problems that are not in the textbook of your classroom. Now, that's where you start solving the problems that no one's tackled before and truly start learning. So when I was doing research, I was doing things I wasn't even taught yet. I remember I was the undergraduate leader of my research lab my junior year. I had about 5 or 6 undergraduates who were working under me, and I was like, oh, this is, you know, a new experience for me. I'm leading a group, and I would have to catch them up to speed. They didn't learn everything, so I was giving them lectures about what to do in the lab. About, you know, here's the chemical process you're going to be seeing. Here's how it works. Here's what you're going to know so that you can do your experiments and be successful. And like 2 weeks later, we're sitting in class, and that same lecture topic gets brought up, and all of their heads whip around to me, and they start pointing, Lucas, you taught us this, Lucas, you taught us this. And I was like, yeah, I did. And so they all did great on that exam. But really, you know, learning outside of that classroom and being like, you know, you can learn it in there, but learning why it matters and how to apply it really has changed the way in which I've been able to handle new topics and wrestle with new problems. Second, do presentations, step outside of your comfort zone. With me holding up a sign and going through various presentations, I remember the first time I did a presentation, I was terrified. I was like, I'm going to fail. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to put together a poster. I don't like, what am I supposed to talk to? They're going to come up to me. And I had all these questions, and it was like, okay, take it step by step. You know, submit your abstract, create your poster, go to it, you're going to do fine. And you learn along the way how to just become natural and comfortable. Now when people come up to me for my poster presentations, you know, I'm not real rigid and stiff, you know, giving off a script. We just talk and have a conversation. Not like we're normal people. And I've had conversations with people who will just stay there for an hour and just chat with me about whether it is, you know, what is going on with rare earth metals, or what is going on with electronic waste, solar panels, but just really having conversations there. And then third, don't be afraid to fail. One of the best things I've ever heard Dr. Grappo say, and I don't even know if he said it before, was, I remember he was talking to a grad student, and she was real worried because her data wasn't turning out well. And so she was kind of panicking, and you know, went into almost a shutdown mode of, oh my goodness, I don't know what to do. I'm not gonna get my PhD. Everything's going wrong. I remember he was talking, and he said she feels like she's gonna fail. But he said, but that's good. That, you know, failure is not a bad thing. He said, I could write the book on failure. And he was so proud of it. He was so proud that he could write the book on failure. And it just struck me. I was like, that's the weirdest thing to say. Oh yeah, it wasn't just said. But what you taught me, and whether you realized it or not, was that the pride you took in that failure made me realize it's okay for me to fail too. And made me realize that when I went down into the lab, I could screw up all day long. But at the end of the day, you know, it was learning that, you know, you can sit there and you can worry all day about the data and whether or not it's good and whether or not you messed up, but taking that next step to just try again and try again after that and keep going, because one time you're eventually gonna get it right. You're just gonna do it. But if you stop the moment you fail, you won't keep going. So then for your applications, when you're actually doing your application, this is what I did. I don't know if this will work the second time around. This is me just trying to hopefully pass on a little bit of wisdom here of kind of what I did. One, be as specific as possible with your research proposal. So I remember going in to Dr. Rappa's office and talking, said, okay, let's do solar panel recycling. Say, how would we do that? We can't just be like, oh, let's do it. It's an issue. Maybe we'll figure out along the way. Now figure out, no one's gonna expect you to be perfect. To be honest, most of the stuff that I ended up doing, I didn't realize until I got deeper into it and realized the new challenges, the new problems that came up, how you need to adapt. But being specific as realizing, okay, I'm going to try this, maybe if this doesn't work, I'll try, X, Y, Z if A and B aren't there. But try as you can, but don't expect yourself to be perfect. Second, play to your strengths. You've got a lot of them. You all do. You're talented, incredible. So play to your strengths. Like I said before, I was doing 3 years of research in electronic waste recycling. So I already had this background of, okay, I know how to treat waste and recycle. This is just totally new feedstock for me. I'm not doing a laptop, I'm doing a solar panel. So I'm sticking with something that I kind of know. It's still a wildly different challenge, and it turns out to be very different, but I know what my strengths are, and I know the different tools that I have in my tool belt that Dr. Rappa has taught me over these years that I can pull from. And then 3, find a good mentor. As I keep saying over and over again, I love mine. He is absolutely fantastic. And so being identify that right off the bat and say, yeah, Dr. Rappa said that he would support me. There are tons of fantastic people over at the Center for Applied Energy Research, and getting to meet with them and work with them has been awesome. And even if you're not in research now, but reaching out and say, hey, you'd be interested, if you've got a research mentor now, utilizing them because they will take you far. And to be honest, Dr. Rappa has opened up worlds to me. So I'm very thankful to that. But as well, I just want to take some time to give a very special thank you as I'm kind of wrapping up here to some of these people that have really made an impact on me. First being obviously Dr. Todd, who has just been an outstanding mentor and example of what is possible. Thinking that, you're not just an engineer, but you can be an entrepreneur as well. And just setting that, it really has meant a lot to me, and everything that you've done through the University of Kentucky and putting that emphasis on research. I know it's changed others' lives. It's certainly changed mine. As you can tell, none of this, everything that I presented would not be possible without Dr. Todd's emphasis on undergraduate research and believing in us, because you learn how critical it is to have these teachers, professors, presidents who believe in you, because the times we don't believe in ourselves, you believed in us. And so Dr. Todd, for that, I'm thankful. Next, 2 very awesome people over the Center for Applied Energy Research. Dave Melanson, who knows like everybody and anybody. He is absolutely fantastic. And for Dave, who's hiding in the back corner, I just want to thank you so much because you have been truly awesome at connecting me when I need help. And I'm like, I don't know what to do with setting all of this up. You have been truly fantastic and wonderful. And I'll be honest, he is like one of the most crucial people here at the university, and just does so much work. And for that, greatly appreciative. And also as well with that, our amazing director, Dr. Rodney Andrews, who just leads the Center for Applied Energy Research in great directions and really is motivating and inspiring to us. And, obviously the fact that I walked into your office and was like, hey, we're doing this Instagram video. And you were like, yeah, sure, why not? It was just amazing. Because that's the kind of guy that Dr. Andrews is always looking to further us and push us along. And for that, very appreciative. Next up, our wonderful communications, marketing, PR, Kevin Puckett and Donovan Moore, who have been absolutely fantastic at the video recording, setting all this up, all the, the technical stuff that I have no idea. I'm a photographer. I am not a videographer. I don't know. Those are 2 very different worlds. And it terrifies me. But they have been awesome at also helping me navigate Instagram. So I had to do that for 7 days. It was a lot, but I remember we sat down on the Zoom meeting and Kevin was like, all right, here's what I'm thinking. Here's some ideas. Run out a schedule for me, really help me out. Donovan as well is just this amazing joy. I remember we were working at the Student Center, and I had its table booth set up for Center for Applied Energy Research, talking with students who were coming along, trying to get them, hey, come look at the opportunities over here. and she was taking pictures for Instagram for me. And I remember I had just drank coffee and it was iced coffee and I got ice in my mouth and I started chewing and my face looked just messed up from chewing ice. And she was like, "Oh, Lucas, let's do it again. Let's do it again. So you look better." And I was like, "Thank you," because I looked like I was frazzled. And then as well, I just want to thank obviously the Center for Bioenergy Research has been absolutely tremendous. Its facilities, as well as enabling this scholarship program, would not be pushed without it. In addition to that, I want to thank the Department of Chemical and Mining Engineering. Our department chair, Dr. Jubla, is hiding over there in the back. And so for that, you and your department have really pushed me to be a chemical engineer in ways in which I have been able to really learn and develop. And so for that, thank you. As well as the Department of Mining Engineering for taking on a crazy chemical engineer who started to infiltrate their department slowly and then bring in more chemical engineers. They have been truly fantastic and I've loved my time over there. They've taught me a lot. I came in as a chemical engineer knowing chemistry, but picking up some of the mechanical things that they taught me and being able to learn has added so much to my education. It's just been a truly invaluable experience. And also as well, my family and my roommates who did not know I was going to put this on there. So for them being my support when I felt like, oh man, life is overwhelming. I got an exam tomorrow. I've got to go do research. I got to go do blah, blah, blah. And it was like, you enjoy all this, don't you? And I was like, yeah, I love it. I really do. And they're like, well, just enjoy it and enjoy the ride and being that support and that rock when I really needed it. Whether it was, with my roommates, we watch movies all the time. And it is one of the most funniest things in the world to watch us sit down as 4 college boys and watch High School Musical together. We have no ounce of shame when it comes to making fun of bad movies. And so thank you all for helping me de-stress. I really appreciate you all. Elijah, I know that you're going to say that you're not one of the roommates, but you're an honorary roommate to me. So thank you. And really having that support system as what has enabled me to keep pushing farther. Last, certainly not least, Dr. Grappo, who has just been, I cannot tell you, an absolute joy. This is, and I pulled this off of Instagram. This is, I don't know if you remember, you were doing the shake. It was awesome because I come into his office and then it's like, hey, I got this Instagram thing I'm doing. You might help me out. And he's just so lively and not only entertaining, but educational at the same time. I remember showing my roommates and they were like, oh my goodness, that is so cool. Like, he's doing, to us, it's really simple. It's a density separation he's got in his hand. It's, he's got some things that will float and some things that will sink and they're mixed together, but you can separate them via density. So separating plastics off, you can do it that way. You can separate, metals that might sink to the bottom. But just the ways in which he brings such creativity to education. And I'll be honest, his classes, I have taken a lot of them purely because he taught them. Classes in conflict minerals, which I had no clue what that was. He told me it was like blood diamonds. And I was like, I kind of know what a blood diamond is, but I don't really. And sitting in there, I remember he just teaches these topics in ways that there are not heavy homeworks, there are not crazy exams. I told him this once. I said, you write exams like you're in elementary school. They are the easiest things in the world. But let me tell you, as much as I will embarrass you, I have never talked more about a class. I have never walked out of a class more and had a conversation, whether I am coming back home to the apartment and telling my roommates, this crazy thing that I learned today about the Amber Mafia, or the other various topics on, energy, the environment, and the ways in which you have just helped me grow, not only as a student, but as a researcher. And I have just truly valued your mentorship and cannot tell you how much it means to me. And I would not be here today without you. So for that, thank you so much, Dr. Grappo. And with that, that ends my presentation. But I'm going to open the floor up to questions if you all have them. Are there any questions? All right.
What's next?
What's next? Oh, that's a great question. In terms of research, there's a lot more we got to do. There's some exciting stuff going on within the realm of now starting to see entrepreneurship and research combine. Here has been amazing in some of the entrepreneurial mentors that I've had, the relationships that I'm now developing with these companies, and being able to learn outside of the classroom and an educational experience that I didn't think was possible, let alone would be successful. So for me next, it's figuring out how to find the intersection between groundbreaking research and ethical entrepreneurship. Yep, fire away.
So you had a lot of fun and chances to break apart solar panels and do the extraction process to that. In your experience of having gone through that, do you have any ideas now on how you could actually design new solar panels to make it easier for recycling?
Yeah, no, that is fantastic. I remember actually writing that in one of my, it was an abstract for something that I submitted about how recycling can now have these informed decisions about design. And so, you know, looking at the lead concentrations, is there something that we can replace lead with? Because it is the hazardous substance in there. Is there a way in which we can make it much easier to sort of liberate certain portions of this? Because, you know, we have methods that we can use. You know, we kind of did it for fun, but we took a piece of unistrut and a hammer, and that's how we punched out our solar panel. There are obviously much better ways of doing that, and we know what they are, but designing, you know, how do you take it apart more effectively and what to do with those broken glass? Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunities in sort of the composition of what you can do, as well as it just making it easier to take apart and pull apart those layers of the sandwich.
Now that you started the question. I'm curious, do you separate the layers, then process or recycle, or have you considered just pulverizing the entire thing to come up with a chemical?
I did that to start with, actually. It's just we threw the whole thing in a shredder, and you know, that definitely has its own problems, because now what you've done is you've taken something that has, you know, distinct, unique, individual layers, and you've made it all one, which if the panel was not 80% glass would be great. But when you do that, all you see is glass. And remember, we would assay these things, and we're like, we're not sure if our assay is correct, because what we were getting back on what the chemical composition of the solar panel was all over the place. And it's because the glass took up 80% of it. So you might pull from one section and it's got, you know, 20% copper, and then you pull from the other and it's like 0.1% copper. So you're like, okay, obviously it's somewhere in between those two. But so what we found is kind of doing a little bit of both along the way, sort of separating out some of those layers, but not just trying to hit the whole thing with one giant hammer, but try to be a little strategic about it. But I'll be honest, it's a lot of fun to shred some of these panels. It makes some great fun. Anybody else? All right.
Well, thank you, everybody. As I think we did a pretty good job selecting the first scholar to receive the Todd award. He checks all those boxes. So a couple of things, though. We are going to still be here for a few minutes. There's still some refreshments outside. Family and friends, please stay around. We got a photographer here. We're going to take some pictures. So the Todds, please stay around too. And then we'll do that also right back outside where we were. Jack, everyone stay, don't mind. And then more questions out there for Lucas are welcome, I'm sure, right?
Oh, yeah, please
and
come
for
up,
Lee
talk
or
to me.
whoever.
Yeah.
Anyway, so, and I also want to say, tonight was really a celebration of three things, I think. So it's a celebration of what Lucas is doing, what the scholarship has allowed us to do, working with Lucas. And thanks to Jack. Also, as fourth thing, there's also roasted Jack. I didn't know we were gonna roast Jack today, but it worked out well too. God, we could do that. The second thing, of course, was to recognize Lee and Patsy and his contributions to our campus. It was an accident. We were hosting this in the Lee Todd building, as you know. That was not by coincidence, so we wanted to make sure you saw that. But also the third thing was to thank our donors. So these things aren't possible, as Lee mentioned earlier, without the generosity of folks. And so there's lots of those folks, some in this room, but also those around the country have supported this and will continue to raise money for this. And so because we need more Lee Todds, we need more Lucas Bertucci's and all those folks. So with that, I think we're done at this part, but we're going to continue again. We're going to continue outside. So thank you for coming.
You too. Yeah.
Yeah.